Welcome to Insightful Player TV. I hope you can hear me now. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent.
Hello.
That was
How are you doing?
excellent. It's so great to have you here, Jason. This is such a treat.
No,
Well,
thank you very much.
Oh, you're doing such
I think this is
beautiful
an honor
work.
to be on your show.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to have you. My goodness. The Mutual Admiration Society over here, right? So I just want to introduce Jason in just a moment, but I want to welcome everyone to Insightful Player TV on minglemediatv.com. And my name is Chrissy Carew, and I'm the founder of Insightful Player. And Insightful Player is a bold, very bold movement of hope that features inspiring stories and programs about NFL great guys. These are guys that are out there in the world under the radar doing beautiful work. They could care less about getting publicity. They just genuinely want to support you. And, you know, we have the book coming out in August, but in the meantime, we have a free ebook for you that you can download on insightfulplayer.com. Insightfulplayer.com. And we want to hear from you, and you'll check out our roster and let us know who you want us to have on. And please chat with Jason tonight. We are so fortunate to have Jason Brown here. He's from the St. Louis Rams. One of my earbuds always falls out. He's a really very kind-hearted man, very kind man. He's a devoted Christian. He has boundless determination and discipline. You wait till you hear his stories. And listen to this. In 2008, he founded Wisdom for Life. It's a church ministry. He shares wisdom with youth to have a blessed, righteous, and purpose-driven life. It's really touching. Jason, welcome to Insightful Player TV.
Thank you again. Thank you for having me, Miss Chrissy. It's an honor to be here.
Oh, great. If any of the kids are around or your wife, you know, they're welcome to pop in and say hi anytime during this interview. And what I know sometimes when we get into these go ahead.
Oh, my son, he's watching Nick Jr. right now, so that's one of his treats after he gets out of school. And our daughter, our newborn, she's taking a nap right now. And my wife, this was one of her first days going back to work. She's not going back to work full time, but she is a dentist, and they needed her to fill in for the main doctor there. So she's been working, all day right now, and I know she can't wait to get back home.
Well, you're going to have to give her a foot massage or something, huh, when she gets back?
Yes. Back rubs. That's her preference.
Oh, she likes back rubs. Oh, you're a great husband.
Back
You really
rubs.
are.
Yes.
Well, we have a lot to get into today, and I just want to check with your time to see if you need to get off right at 7:30 sharp, or if we go over a little bit, if that's okay. Whatever.
No, I'm fine. I'm at your disposal.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm at your disposal. I'm here.
Okay, great. Well, there is so much to talk about with Jason Brown. That's all there is to it. But as always, with a lot of the players, because the listeners are so interested, can you share, what the lockout is like for you, Jason?
Well, right now we're really up in lingo right now, and there's a lot of players that are hurting and struggling, with the transition from last year and to right now. They have an overabundance of time on their hands and really not knowing what to do with it. And even though most of the players receive a bulk of their income and salary during the season, there are off-season roster bonuses and workout bonuses that players receive and that players depend on and rely on. So right now, to tell you the truth, even though there is a big perception out there that all NFL players are well off, there are a few guys that are hurting and struggling, and we would really like to get back to work as fast as possible.
And do you have any predictions for the near future with that, Jason?
Hopefully we do have a cutoff date, and we're saying that is July the 15th, pretty much a month from now, and we're saying that date is the day that for us the lockout needs to be over. There needs to be some type of resolution at the bargaining table for us to come back and salvage our 2011 season, because if not, it could postpone or drag into the preseason, and we could miss a couple of preseason games, which are very important for our preparation, or it could mean that we have a shortened season, and some people are predicting right now that is there going to be a season? Hopefully yes, but it could be a shortened season. By how much? We don't know. It could drop from 16 games maybe down to 8 games.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, that would be horrible as a football fan, and there are so many football fans in the world. It's like amazing. So we're all praying that things will get settled as soon as possible, and I hope it gets settled even before mid-July.
Thank you.
And surprise all of you. That would be great.
Thank you.
Yeah, that must be
Yes.
tough. Do you guys all get together? Do you get together during this?
Yes. Now, there are several player-led workouts through teams all throughout the NFL. And one thing that the Rams players have done, we scheduled a mini camp, a player-led mini camp for ourselves at a local university. And this was the week before a Memorial Weekend. And all of the skill guys came into town, all of the defensive guys, defensive backs, offensive linemen, and of course, led by our star, quarterback Sam Bradford, who is a remarkable young man, and he's he's the guy that we're saying is going to take us there and take us to the top. And we had a great workout that whole week. It was a 4-day mini camp before it broke short, and then it was a wonderful experience that several of the players, we were able to head down to Joplin, Missouri, and bring a little bit of relief and support to the people down there. And I'm sure all of the viewers know that Joplin was devastated by tornadoes about several weeks ago. Completely devastated.
Absolutely. That was awful, wasn't it? So did you see any
Yes,
of that?
it was. To tell you the truth, we wanted to see a few of the disaster areas, but they said you really don't want to satisfy your curiosity. They said it's so bad that you really just pretty much want to stay away from that site. So what we did was we visited the relief center, and what they've done was they took a local university and their gymnasium and their practice gymnasium, they've turned it into an American Red Cross and FEMA relief center. So we were able to go there and visit and mingle and play with the kids that day.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yep.
See? That's wonderful that you did that. It's so sad that happened to that area. My goodness. I bet you that was a real lift for those kids.
Yes, and now looking at the news, they're calling for more tornadoes in the area of here, St. Louis, tonight. So we just have to keep a lookout for what's going on.
Yes, definitely.
Yep.
You be safe, Jason. You be safe.
I will. Thank you. But it's but it's not just here. It's all across America. I even saw videos of Massachusetts, all the way up there. I mean, places where you hardly ever see storms. It's an eye-opening experience as to what's going on with the weather patterns all across our country.
Yeah, I live right on the Massachusetts border, so yeah, it was like a week or so ago. It was really tough.
Yes.
So you have to, Stephanie, I think I'm going to have to use headsets from now on. These kids, I can't get these things to stay in my ears. I don't know why. I'll have to get my husband to drill them down and make these little buds smaller or something. So, well, we have so much to talk about, Jason. You have such a great smile. You know what I think would be great? If you could just share a little bit about your amazing grandfather, Jasper. I just was so touched by that story.
Yes.
And that's your roots. I mean, can you talk about your grandfather?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Jasper Brown, born in Yanksville in Caswell County, North Carolina, and it was well in the middle of the civil rights movement, where my grandfather, he was a farmer, owned more than 200 acres of land, and that's how he made his living, working the soil of the land and farming the land. But yet he knew that he didn't want his children to have to go through such a labor-filled and arduous life the way that he did. And he knew that the only way that they would be able to overcome that was through education. Well, at that time, the school systems, of course, they were segregated, and the white schools versus the black schools, the comparison in education there really was no comparison. My father would tell me stories of how everything that they received were hand-me-downs. Some kids, they take for granted, receiving, brand new textbooks with updated information, nowadays. Well, the textbooks that they received were, at least 10 years old. Whenever he opened up a book, it had about, 10 names in it, and he saw names like Little Johnny and Susie, and he knew that they were hand-me-downs from the white schools, because they received the best at that time and the cream of the crop, while some of the black schools on the other side of town were receiving a second-rate education. So what my grandfather did was, he knew that he would have to petition the school board to allow his children to be enrolled into the white schools, and for the schools to be desegregated. And it was a long and arduous battle, and it took several years. Whereas his petitions were declined one time after another, and my grandfather, he was the president of the local chapter of the NAACP at the time, and he received tremendous support from the rest of the blacks in the community until the NAACP started to receive threats from, of course, the KKK at the time. They started to receive threats on their family, threats on their lives, and things of that nature. So that kind of disorganized everything, and a lot of people, they were so fearful of their lives that a lot of progress came to a halt. But my grandfather, because he was the president and he was the spearhead, he was relentless. And he was relentless in his work ethic. He was relentless in his faith, and he said that I'm not going to back down. So he continued to petition until, fortunately and luckily, what year was it, Mother? 1962? 63? I'm sorry, my mother wrote a book on this story, and it's called Dead End Road, so I have to make sure I get my facts straight from Deborah Brown, the author of the book. And so it was 1963 where they finally agreed to allow the schools to be desegregated in Yanksville and Caswell County. Well, they had even posted it in the newspaper in bold print, and it said that from several members of the KKK, they said that if you put your black children in our white schools, we're going to hang you. And everyone knew that this message was directed towards my grandfather, Jasper Brown. And even outside of their farm, in a very large tree, there was a noose hanging from that tree, and it hung there for months, and no one ever took it down. And everyone that drove by knew that that was a warning and a threat for my grandfather, Jasper Brown. Well, on the actual day that the schools were desegregated, my grandfather took my father, Lunsford Brown, and his two other siblings to school that day. And my grandfather was so filled with anxiety and nervousness, because he knew that more than likely they were going to plan an attempt on his life that day. So he went to the local cleaners, and before getting to the cleaners, there was a police officer that pulled him over and searched his vehicle, and this was strategically done so that if there was a potential threat on his life, they were searching for weapons, so that he would not have a weapon to defend himself. after that incident, my grandfather continued and went to the cleaners, and the gentleman behind the counter, handed my grandfather his shirts and his package, and he said, Jasper, hold the clothes from the bottom of the bag. They're heavy. And my grandfather paid this, very little attention. He just continued to go about his way. He just knew that he had to get back home as fast and as safely as possible, to the safety of his surroundings, where he would at least be able to have, a shotgun at home to protect himself. Well, on his way home, out of nowhere, there were two vehicles filled with white men, and they plowed my grandfather, Jasper's vehicle, off of the road and forced him down into a ditch. And at that time, the gentlemen from the cars, I see it was about 4 per car, 8 gentlemen total, and they came out with clubs and baseball bats because they had planned on beating him halfway to death before actually hanging him and lynching him in the tree of what they had plotted to do so months before in advance. And my grandfather was such a faithful and a God-fearing and a prayerful man that he did the only thing that he knew that he could do, and he put his hands on the steering wheel and he began to pray. And in the middle of his prayers, while praying to God, by this time they had bust open the vent window, the guys with the clubs, and they had reached in, unlocked the door, and they had opened up the door. And at the very instance where they had laid their hands on him to drag him out of the car, God came to Jasper in his prayers, and God said, Jasper, hold the clothes from the bottom of the bag. They're heavy. And at that instance, grandfather reached to his right to the bottom of the clothes bag that he had just picked up from the laundry, and in the bottom he found a fully loaded .38 revolver. And he just started, shooting and wailing, and thank God that, I mean, if it had not been for the power of prayer, the scriptures say that if no enemy formed against you shall prosper, and that God will always give you a way out against evil, against injustice, and that's what he did for my grandfather.
Oh my God, that's such a.
And his life was saved that day.
That is such one of the most amazing stories I've ever heard in my life. How could that must just bring you to tears?
Yes, ma'am.